Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Two clips today. The first clip I have is an ancient language scholar by the name of Wes Huff entering the modern Aropicus known as the Joe Rogan Experience, and he's explaining an ancient heretical gospel and its view of the Passion narrative. This was super fascinating. I had never heard of this gospel before, and neither had I heard of this view of the Passion. So while Huff is explaining, he mentions the writers of this gospel, this heretical gospel, and Bishop Barron has commented extensively on these writers. So after we watch Wes Huff, we will watch Bishop Barron delve into their worldview, and most specifically and more importantly, he's going to explain how their worldview, how their heretical worldview has entered kind of evasively into our modern world.
So we have an account of the resurrection. Do we have an account of the denial of the resurrection? Is there an historical record of him just dying and this, like a refutal or a rebuttal rather to what they're saying?
No, the only ones from the ancient world that deny his resurrection are groups that come on afterwards that sometimes are described as Gnostics, and they're not necessarily just denying it for the reasons we might think they were. They're denying it because they have incorporated ideas of pagan philosophy where they believe that the spiritual is good and the physical is bad. So if Jesus was crucified, let me back up. If Jesus is God, he cannot have a physical body. So they deny that he actually had a physicality to him. This is sometimes called Gnosticism because dokein in Greek means to seem. So these groups that we describe as the docetics, they are denying that Jesus had a physical body. He only seemed to have a physical body. And they wrote.
So the Gnostics are the writers of this forgotten gospel, and their belief is that God could never have a physical body. This is important context. Now he's going to mention the gospel and its view of the Passion.
And they wrote documents later on. So the Gospel of Peter, which comes around in 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries, is being written, and it has Jesus kind of chilling on the cross because he's not really physical because he's divine, and physical entities don't have physical bodies.
So as you heard, the gospel is the gospel of Peter, and the viewpoint of the Passion is that Jesus is just chilling on the cross, or he is like a ghost on the cross. That means, I think, that he didn't really suffer. At least he didn't suffer physically. I would encourage people to read St. Irenaeus on this because he explains why the incarnation is so important. The incarnation is necessary for our salvation. Therefore, the Gospel of Peter and this Gnostic teaching truly is heretical. Now let's listen to Bishop Barron, who explains more about the writers, the Gnostics, and their worldview, Gnosticism.
What is Gnosticism?
Well, of course, it's kind of famously hard to define. That's part of its allure and power. It's a little amorphous. But just begin with the word itself, Gnosticism, from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. So the Gnostics claimed they had a sort of private knowledge, a specialized knowledge of the way things really are. Now, what was that knowledge? Now I'll go back to the 2nd century and some of the great figures of that period when the movement was very strong. It was the knowledge that the world as we see it, this material world, is a kind of a fallen world. But yet in it, trapped as it were in it, are sparks of a spiritual reality. And the idea now, the salvation enterprise, is to get these spiritual elements, these souls, you want, or minds, out of their captivity to matter and to reunite to their purely spiritual origin. The whole Gnostic program, if you want to get all the details, read the first 3 volumes of Irenaeus against the heresies. But that there's a sort of primal source of all reality, a purely spiritual, and then a whole series of emanations that come forth from that primal source, leading finally to a very low-level spiritual power who makes the physical world. And the physical world, therefore, is a fallen world. It's a compromised world. I won't go into all the details, but for certain reasons, spiritual elements get trapped in the material world. The gnosis in question, the knowledge, is this specialized insight into the situation and the means by which we can extricate ourselves from our captivity to matter. The perceptive person will see overtones of Platonism. There's something of Plato's anthropology of imprisonment, that the soul is, as it were, imprisoned in the body, and the idea is a prison break So the whole point of philosophy is to rise up above, to escape from matter. Well, that's kind of a call it semi-Gnostic point of view. But it borrows from a lot of other sources too. But that's, I think, the basic structure of it.
So as you can see, Bishop Barron brilliantly defines Gnosticism, but the most important aspect is how their worldview is really a hidden heresy within our modern world. Here again is Bishop Barron to explain this crucial and important point.
Another example of Gnosticism in the culture today, you've talked about this countless times in your videos and books, is what you describe as the culture of self-invention.
Yeah.
How is this a manifestation of Gnosticism?
Well, I'll tell you exactly how, because in the Gnostic view, the body is fallen, right? And the spirit's what's all about, what's going on inside of me. That's what it's all about. And the spirit has this prerogative to shape matter. Matter is just this sort of fallen, infinitely malleable thing that spirit has total control over. Well, we see it, of course, as you say, broadly in the culture of self-invention. Make it more specific in the gender ideology to say, I can remake my own body according to my spiritual whim. I'm not happy with the body I've been given, well, I'll change it. That's a basically Gnostic impulse. Rather than saying, no, I am who I am, a creature of God, both body and soul, in an integrated unity. That's a Catholic or biblical anthropology. Gnostic anthropology is a tension between spirit and body. Body in a denigrated position, hence able to be manipulated by spirit. It's interesting, we could go all day on philosophical overtones, but many have pointed out, read Cyril O'Regan for the details, that many of the modern philosophers have a Gnostic quality. Whether it's Descartes himself, the founder of modern philosophy, with his sharp bifurcation between the res cogitans, right, the thinking thing, the mind, and the res extensa, the extended thing of the body. And the two are in this kind of, opposed relationship. Or whether it's in someone like Immanuel Kant, the sharp noumenon-phenomenon distinction. Or in Kant, the only thing that's really good is a good will, right? And that the realm of the phenomenal, the realm of the material and so on, is not immediately relevant to the moral enterprise. Bring that up into the 20th century and those philosophies of fundamental option. When you say there's the outside where I'm doing particular things, but then deep down within, I've made this fundamental choice for God. And so I'm basically good, even though I sometimes do bad things on the outside in my particular moral acts. Well, there's something Gnostic in that, because it's elevating the interior over the exterior. It's privileging the spirit over the body. A healthy, I would say, Irenaean Thomistic approach sees the deep integration of those two. To make just a quick word about my hero, Thomas Aquinas, and I reverence Plato and the Neoplatonists influence Christianity in very positive ways. But it's interesting to note in the 13th century, when Aquinas opts for Aristotle, which was a very controversial option at the time because of the dominance of Plato from the early fathers on. But see, part of what Thomas liked in Aristotle was this greater sense of the unicity of the person. He was worried about the sort of Platonic anthropology, of the spirit kind of trapped within the body, the spirit needing to escape from the body. Thomas was a great theologian of the body, as Irenaeus was. And he saw Aristotle there, I think, as a better philosophical conversation partner because of the unicity of mind and body.